Featured in this tutorial, I am using Sweet Stamp by Amy Cakes. Here I have the new Love Elements Sweet Stamp set, perfect for your Valentine's cakes and cupcakes. I am also using the Sweet Sticks Font Edition by Sweet Stamp. On this board you will find both the upper and lower fonts. And you will also notice I have the Professional Brush Duo set. I will leave a link to Amy's official website in the description below this video. If you have never used any of these sets before, I'm just going to show you how to take out the lettering very easily. So your fonts will come on either one board like they do here or two boards. And I found using some tacky fondant or even a small needle really makes it very, very easy to take out each letter. Simply remove all of the letters that you need for your cake drum or your cake. For this particular tutorial, I want the words Be My Valentine. Now there's only one E in there, as you can notice, so the other gaps will be filled in as we place it on the fondant. Here you can also see what you actually get in the Love Elements set. In total, there are 6 different embossers. I'm choosing to use just the Cupid embosser and the word that says love. Now we need to cover our cake drum. For this, I am choosing to use the red Renshaw's fondant. You will need 750 gram. I am using spacers in order to roll my fondant in between that are 5 millimeters thick, large rolling pin, icing sugar, a smoother, a sharp knife, and for this particular tutorial, I am choosing to cover a 12-inch round cake drum. So all I have done is covered my 12-inch round cake drum with some cooled down boiled water. This will act like a natural glue. And now try to roll your fondant out and keep it in a round shape. And then we will simply be applying this to the drum, smoothing it over and cutting off any excess fondant. All I have done here is placed on the base of a 6-inch round cake tin, the same size of my cake, to use it as a guide. And I'm now going to place on all the elements from Sweet Stamp that are going to be embossed. Once I've got them where I want them, I will then be gently pushing them into the fondant, and I will show you my way of taking them back out because I like the indentation to be quite deep. I like to use tweezers to actually remove the embossers from the fondant. Just be careful not to damage the actual embosser. I like to push them really deeply into the fondant, as you can see here. Now, what I am doing when I am pushing them in, obviously some of the fondant's going to move. That's why I've left some of the letters in there. And I'm also using my smoother and going over the top of the embossers as well, just like I'm going to here. It makes sure it's pushed down, it's level with the fondant. Remember, this fondant is 5 millimeters thick. You don't have to push them in as deep as this. This is how I like to do it. Simply do this for all of the embossers and then using your tweezers, just pull them out gently, including every single letter. We now want to leave this to one side overnight just to let the fondant set, and it will be much easier to paint. Whilst our board is to one side setting, using some modelling paste, simply cut out a heart shape. We will be using this as the gift tag on our present cake. Now taking your Love Element Sweet Stamp, simply emboss this directly into your modelling paste. This then needs to be left to set overnight and it will go lovely and hard. Now everything is set, using the finest brush out of the Duo Professional set by Sweet Stamps, simply paint each of your letters and every embossed section that you have done. The paint I am using is a 100% edible metallic silver paint by Rainbow Dust, and it contrasts beautifully on this red fondant. So if you are doing this for Valentine's Day, I would highly recommend it. Now that the cake drum and the gift tag are ready, we need to make the bow. I'm going to be using the Renshaw's red fondant and turning this into modelling paste using 1 teaspoon of Tylo powder to every 250 grams of fondant. I've got some basic pieces of equipment here. So a sharp knife. I'm going to be using this 4-inch base tin just as a guide so my bow doesn't end up too large. I have some icing sugar, a rolling pin, and if you've got one of these in your kitchen, fantastic, it will save time. It's a ribbon cutter. If not, it doesn't matter, you can just measure yours using a ruler. Bows are extremely easy to make but look so striking. All I have done here is rolled out some of my modelling paste. I've not rolled it out to a certain thickness, but I've made sure it's not too thin. I've dusted down my surface with some icing sugar, and then using the ribbon cutter, you simply want to cut out strips. In total, I want 9 of these, all of the same size. The ribbon cutter's given me a great guide, but now I'm going to use my sharp knife just to go down there and make sure it's cut out correctly. Don't worry if you don't have a ribbon cutter. I used to do this with a ruler. It just takes a little bit longer. So again, it's another great piece of equipment to consider investing in. Once you've cut out your strips, now I'm using a pillar here, a cake pillar. If you don't have anything like this, you can just use kitchen roll, but you just want to wrap each strip around the pillar and then glue them where they meet. Leave these overnight and they will go lovely and hard. Here I have 2 6-inch round, 5 centimetre deep cakes. I have a recipe for this in the description below this video, and also the buttercream can be found as a separate tutorial. Again, a link for you in the description below this video. Simply fill your cakes, sandwich them together and crumb coat. If you're not familiar with crumb coating a cake, it's just a case of adding buttercream to the outer layer and the tops. This will just help our fondant stick to something, and it also helps keep your cake lovely and fresh. So completely cover your cake and then place it back into the fridge for about 30 to 60 minutes. Whilst our cake is in the fridge, we are going to be using the Pretty in Pearls Marvellous Molds Simpress to create that amazing effect on the outside of the cake. Really simple to use, and we're going to be making these whilst our buttercream is setting. Start by greasing your Simpress mould with some Trex vegetable fat. You can use icing sugar if you want to, but this process so much easier using Trex. I have added a very small amount of Tylo powder to my fondant just to make it easier to work with. I haven't added the same amount that I would if I was wanting this to set rock hard. I've added about half a teaspoon to every 250 grams. Now, I'm not using any spacers for this, just judgment. I'm just rolling it out. I want it thin, but I don't want it too thin. You want it about the same thickness as the actual Simpress mould. You then simply want to pick this up once you've rolled it out and push it into all those gaps that you can see on the actual mould. You want to pick up as many of those pearls on there as you possibly can. I'm going to speed this process up for you just so that you can see exactly what I do. Once it's all pushed in there, you then want to use your rolling pin and just go over the top of the Simpress mould, and all of that excess fondant will naturally come away. Now flip your mould upside down. You see how easy it is to remove everything, and just gently pull it away. Now in total, we're going to need 3 of these for the sides of the cake and 2 for the top. Look at the detail that you can see on there. So now you need to make another 4 of these, and then we can apply them to our actual cake. So the buttercream is going to act as a natural glue. These have been on the side for a while, not too long, but remember it is a bit like modelling paste, so they are easy to pick up, but you still need to be fairly gentle. Simply pick them up and apply them to the sides of your cake. You'll notice the pieces slot into each other. Now 1 or 2 of mine have stretched slightly, so I am going to have some excess modelling paste to actually cut away. If they don't stretch, and it is possible to do it, a bit harder, but it is possible, then they will all slot into each other perfectly as long as you are using the right sized cake. So these are designed for a 6-inch, 8-inch, 4-inch, 12-inch, 10-inch, etc. as long as it's an equal number. How simple but striking is that effect? For the top of the cake, I have simply put 2 pieces together. I'm taking my 6-inch round base tin, and I'm just going to cut around it and then stick these pieces directly on top of my buttercreamed cake. Now we need to make it look like a present, so some of this is going to be cut away in strips. I've just marked this out using a ruler, and then all I'm going to do, because it's just on buttercream, using my very, very sharp knife, I'm going to carefully cut around those indentation marks that I have left myself as a guide, and cut a line all the way across the top in both directions, so we end up a bit like a cross, and down all of the sides. We will then be filling this, again using modelling paste so it's easier to use, but using that lovely Renshaw's red colour. So this is what you want to end up with. Now just before we add the red, I want to add this lovely pearl luster dust by Claire Bowman first, and a few silver balls just to make it a bit more striking. The difference this dust makes is amazing. So instead of just having it white, we're going to give it more of a pearlized effect, if you like. You can see how the camera's picking it up there, and that's just with a small amount of this actual dust. It's completely edible, so just cover every single part of your cake. And the reason I'm doing this before we add the red stripes is because if I accidentally get any dust on the red, it could ruin the effect. And then just add some silver balls on there randomly. You don't have to if you don't want to. I just wanted to give it a bit more of a va-va-voom effect. Now we're going to add those lovely red stripes. So I've just cut these the same thickness as the area that I've cut out. I'm using the buttercream as a natural glue, and I'm simply going to place them in those indentations that I have made. Now I want to add all of the elements, place this in the fridge, and then I will physically be able to lift this cake up and place it onto the decorated cake drum. Starting with our bow. Now to put this together, we're just going to be using the Renshaw's fondant, not modelling paste, and some edible glue. If you roll out a big ball of fondant like I have here and make it into more of a disc shape and place it directly on top of where I'm placing that edible glue now, it will give the actual bow something to stick to. Because that fondant is so lovely and soft, you're going to physically be able to push in the modelling paste that has actually set, So if you start with your first 4 pieces on the base, using that to push it into, again, using a lot of edible glue, and then just above that, to make it a bit more gravity defying, you add another ball of fondant. I will speed this process up for you, and you can see just how easy it is to make your own edible bow. So all I have done here is literally left that cake in the fridge, lifted it up and placed it on the cake drum. I've added the love element part to the cake, but I've done that once it was on the drum, just so it was at the correct angle. All I'm going to do now is steam off this excess icing sugar. If you don't have a steamer, don't worry about it. You can just use a brush. And there we have it, our completed Valentine's Day cake. Happy baking, everyone, and I will be back soon with more new free content Sunday at 7 p.m.